When you say you lost 90% of your friends, that was for telling them what specifically, or holding what view?
Yeah, my ideas of me telling them that capitalism is a good thing,
Hmm.
that the free markets are good, and that's what the poor need. We
Hmm.
need this in our country so that we can build wealth as well. I lost my friends for saying that.
Are
It
these
was not
friends back in Senegal, or is this in the US?
these are the friends that I had. It's a good point. These were primarily the friends that I had in the US, but then
Hmm.
make no mistake, the people that I would talk to back home as well were feeling the same way. What are you talking about? Capitalism is what got us here. And then I would say to them, what do you mean capitalism got us here? Well, where were you? Don't you know about colonialism? And then I'm like, oh. And then this is also, you realize then that people are conflating capitalism with colonialism, with imperialism, and all types of other isms. They're all bad, don't take me wrong, but that is not what free market capitalism is. And so even them, they conflated on the Africa side, everything is conflated, and they hate, especially the Pan Africanists, who, for the most part, are self proclaimed Marxist socialists. I mean, capitalism is the devil as well. But in this case, when I was telling you about my friends, it was the friends that I had in the West. But come to think of it, the friends that I had back home, no different. Except that my friends back home don't just, say, "Oh, you're saying something we don't like, so we hate you." It doesn't work like that. They just say, "Oh, you're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. Let me send you some more books." And I'm like, I don't need to read one more Walter Rodney or another Frantz Fanon. Thank you very much. There's other books out there like George Aite's and people like that. So, but that's what the Africa side would do. But they don't, cross you like that, like in the West people would, like my left wing friends in America were doing. So in this case, it was more my the ones I'm talking about that I lost were my friends in America that identified as left wing. That's it's them. The other ones disagreed, but we still remain friends. So and I was in a way persona non grata because of those ideas.
I'm curious to dig into this a little bit, because I know that I've personally never lost a friend over politics in my entire life, and it's not because they all agree with all of my views or vice versa. So I'm always kind of intrigued when people go through these things where they say they lost, even one friend, but in your case, you're saying a majority of your friends over this, particularly because the viewpoint you're expressing here is merely something that is economic. Normally, when people lose friends over politics and those stupid circumstances, it tends to be more like social or cultural topics, which make them think that, oh, this person is hateful, or some type of phobe, or they're suffering from some type of ism. So I find it peculiar that saying good things about free market capitalism and about markets and about entrepreneurship, it sort of baffles me that even someone who's a lefty would find that something that is like, oh, I need to disassociate from this person because they're pro free market. Like it just sounds weird to me.
It sounds weird because it's weird. So let me give you pointers that can maybe help you understand like the frame for this at least. So in my case, what you had to think about is like, and I see it today. I see people in the very same sentence being raw entrepreneurship, but being down on the free markets. And so that is not, those two don't necessarily go together. So there is a whole cluster of people who are very much pro entrepreneurship, but not free markets oriented. And you even see that in the whole aid oriented field. You see people talking about entrepreneurship. We're going to try to help entrepreneurs with primarily with doing capacity building, all of that stuff. But whenever you try to even touch the concept of free markets, it's like you are literally talking dirty. And also when you're in the world of so in my world, just so I bring you back to my world, what it was is I was very much an advocate, not only for entrepreneurship but obviously for free markets. But imagine a conference like Bioneers. Have you heard of Bioneers?
I'm not familiar, no.
Yeah. So Bioneers, at least back in my days, was this huge conference up in Marin County, so North Bay of San Francisco. So north of San Francisco would be like, was it by Sebastopol or whatever? But anyway, North Bay. And there, it's the type of conference where everything was about pretty much what my African Marxist socialist friends would be all about, which is all of these conspiracies to keep the poor people poor. It was like these stories about how the and some of this stuff was there were some mixed in there were some things that were mixed in that were kind of right, not right. Even
Mhm.
just like complaining about the pharmaceutical industry. Like we were part of people who way before RFK, I don't know what RFK Jr. was saying back then because we didn't know him, but people who are saying there's something really weird and rotten going on with the pharmaceutical industry, well, we were there. We were there making these
Mhm.
connections, and some folks saying that there is definitely something maybe in pot that would be a good for fighting cancers. All of these, basically the alternative was we belong to this whole alternative world. And is it
Yes.
true? Is it true that the pharmaceutical industry there is some really bizarre things happening? Yes, for sure. But their idea, so let's say we agree on that, but then their idea as to how do we solve that problem was not let's free healthcare, and then also let's free education. It's going to be more government intervention. So these are
Mhm.
some of the places where we completely disagreed. And also we were starting all of our meetings. It was like a conference, and outside you had bales of hay, all of that, people dressed very much the hippie. That was my world as well. So you have to understand I was just very much into that world of complete alternative, completely gone to the other side. And so
Mhm.
there we were talking about. So basically, the free markets was the evil. Capitalism was evil. It's the way the Marxists really understand it. It's an evil thing. So for you to turn around all of a sudden and say, it's almost like for me today, if I had friends who were into communism, of course I'm not going to say to my friends, you're no longer my friend because you believe in communism. But anytime we go to that topic, I'm sure there's going to be an argument, a fight for sure. But I'm not going to
Mhm.
let go of my friends because of that. But I do think that we were having identity. We were having identity policy before identity policy was happening. We so you have to understand that a lot of these people, their identity was linked to the way they felt about some of these ideas. Oh, I was telling you, every morning the conference would start with the native people doing a chant and dances, and
Mm.
we were bowing down to the land. Again, I have nothing wrong with that, but today you see it, and you see it almost everywhere, especially in Canada. We want to thank the people who allowed us whatever, but where
Land acknowledgement.
exactly, where all of this went wrong. Again, for me, there's inherently nothing wrong with that, but you've
Mhm.
seen also where that took us eventually in the end, right? So this was again almost 20 years ago, and this type of stuff was starting to happen. So in my case, it's that I belong to networks where we were trying to think about what was going to be the right systems for us to be able to live in the type of societies that we wanted to live. So my friends were not necessarily, we were not just like, people, talking to each other about this or that. We're very much steeped into the world of ideas. And I think at some point, some of these ideas became very much equal to the identity of some of the people in that network. So, like I said, and I didn't. It's today that I can understand what was going on back then. But I think at some point, when your ideas become your identity, and your identity becomes your ideas, it's a very tricky position to be in. And not everybody is equipped to really, to really deal with it, especially when on top of that, everything that surrounds you is depends on it. I'll give you what do I mean by that? I mean by that your donor system is based on that. If you're a nonprofit, your donors believe a certain thing. If you have customers, our customers. If back then I had come out with, for example, and I didn't because I didn't know better yet. It's later that I found out. This is actually a good one. um if you have donors, your donors believe in this. If all of a sudden you don't believe in, and we were not calling it socialism, but if all of a sudden you no longer believe what we believed, and you believe that free market is the way, you're starting to become this you know person that is not going to be welcome in the community anymore. Your investors and also even your buyers, we had this whole yogi culture. And again, you go back, identity was starting to happen, identity politics was starting to happen. What you consumed, the places that you hang out, the friends that you had, it was all one big homogenous, thing, especially there in San Francisco.
Today's episode is brought to you by Sambrosa, the best way to get your 8 hours of rest. I met the owners of the company while they were on tour with Tucker Carlson, and their nighttime syrup has been a game changer for me. It's really effective to get your quality rest at night. Sambrosa contains a natural base of 7 organic herbs, honey, and a small amount of antihistamine. It's effective and soothing with no harsh chemicals, no high fructose corn syrup, no artificial colors or dyes, and it helps with nighttime allergies. Sambrosa is a family-owned company who share my values of faith, freedom, and integrity. I've been using their products since before they started sponsoring this podcast, so I can personally vouch for its quality. My listeners can try Sambrosa today and get 10% off by going to sambrosa.com/Zuby10. That's SAMBROSA.com/Zuby10 for 10% off. Try Sambrosa and wake up ready to embrace life's opportunities.